What are cognitive functions? Now, you'll notice I'm not asking the question, what are the cognitive functions? Introverted and extroverted thinking, feeling, sensing, and intuition, but rather, what are cognitive functions? We talk a lot about them, so I think it would do us some good to try to get our brains around what we're talking about. In my study and in my observations of other people, the best definition that I can give for cognitive functions is that they are basically programs that our brain is running. Think of your brain as a computer, and it comes into this world with an operating system pre-programmed on it. We could say that that operating system is our overall personality type, perhaps like ISFP or ENTJ or whatever it may be. The operating system is responsible for processing information and then extrapolating data out and coming to conclusions based on that processing of information. And we do what we do and say what we say based on the extrapolated data that our computer has processed, the conclusions that it has come to. But that operating system is using programs to take the raw data and move it from data that has been input to extrapolated conclusions. The programs that the operating system is using in order to do this are the cognitive functions. So let's just pick a random personality type, let's say ESFP. ESFP operating system is running the extroverted sensing program, and it is running it as its primary program. So what that means is, effectively, when information comes in that the operating system is responsible for processing and making conclusions on, it is going to have the extroverted sensing program scrub the data first. Now, the problem is that the extroverted sensing program, as an example, will tend to take most of the important information that exists, let's say, in the intuitive realm, and it will scrub it out so that it never has the opportunity, largely, to then be factored into the equation and processed into the extrapolated conclusion. It would be nice if extroverted sensing would pass a full set of data on to what is the ESFP's most balanced program, which is really the FITE, introverted feeling, extroverted thinking program. Now, introverted feeling and extroverted thinking are two separate programs, but they work in conjunction with one another. And in this case, if the ESFP's mind would allow the full data to make it to the FITE program, then the FITE program, being relatively balanced, could probably draw some really good conclusions. However, unfortunately, extroverted sensing, the program that is doing a significant portion of the processing and has scrubbed the data first, has eliminated a good chunk of useful data. Then once FI and TE get to do what they do, NI, introverted intuition for the ESFP, is given about 10 seconds, let's say, to scrub what little data there is left. And that data, for the most part, has no intuition information or intuitive information left in it. So not only does introverted intuition get almost no time to process the data to help add to the overall conclusion, but there's not much data left that would be interesting to the introverted intuition program anyway. Therefore, the outcome is that the ESFP is taking data, raw data that it has taken in, and it has now processed it down and thrown away a lot of useful information. The programs that follow that initial scrub are left to try to draw good conclusions with the data that they have, but they're working with incomplete data. Now, this is true for every personality type. You could do this with an ENTJ. Let's say the TE program is going to scrub the data and throw out a lot of the the information that comes from the feeling realm, and then the relatively balanced programs of sensing and intuition are going to do as best as they can with the information that TE or extroverted thinking handed them. And then maybe introverted feeling will get 10 seconds to help chime in on the operating system's attempt to make sense of all of the information that it has taken in. The problem that we have here is that regardless of which personality type you choose to look at, you have this one program that tends to scrub out a lot of really important data and pass on an incomplete data set to the rest of the mind, and then it has to try to extrapolate logical and sound conclusions based on incomplete data. Introverted intuition or extroverted sensing or introverted feeling or any of these cognitive functions are really just pre-wired computer programs in your brain. They are designed to try to take information that comes in and then make sense of it so that when you speak or make decisions or act or think or whatever it is that you do, you'll do it well. But the reality is we don't do it well. Why? Because it would seem there's another program running in the background. And that program is a program that seems to be designed to prevent us from realizing how imbalanced this whole processing of information is. The ESFP somehow fails to realize how imbalanced his or her extroverted sensing is compared to the introverted intuition, and how the extroverted sensing is scrubbing out useful data, leaving the introverted intuition to starve to death effectively, and causing the thinking and feeling even to be working with an incomplete data set. The ESFP doesn't see it. The INFJ doesn't see it. The INTP doesn't see it. We don't see the imbalance within ourselves. There seems to be another program running in the background of our brain, and the sole purpose of that program is to prevent us from seeing how imbalanced our thinking is. Now, fascinatingly, when we look at other people, we often can see the imbalance, can't we? I mean, it is very common for us to see a person that we know, watch them for a while, get to know them, whatever, and say, oh, that person is regularly a complainer. That person is loud and rambunctious. That person is quiet and reserved, and you can't get them to ever open up or tell you anything. This person's an emotional wreck. This person is cold and unfeeling. Whatever the case may be, we are able to look at other people and oftentimes see the imbalance that their operating system is working with due to these cognitive function computer programs, but we don't see it in ourselves very often. Now, if we come to a realization, like if we look around at everybody else and we say, well, that person's kind of imbalanced in this area and that person's imbalanced in this other area, and everybody that we see is imbalanced in some way, then we ought to be able to really think through that and go, I should probably conclude that I'm imbalanced too. Whether I see it or not, it must be true of me because it seems to be true of everybody else. But that program in the background that keeps on running seems to block that information from us until one day, for whatever reason, we do become somehow cognizant or conscious of it. And then if we're willing to step back and basically watch ourselves as an outside observer, we can begin to see it. We can begin to see the ways in which our programs are not running in a way that will allow our mind, our operating system, whatever you want to call it, to provide a complete and thoroughly analyzed data set that will allow us to make decisions and say words and do things that are the best way that they can be done, that are the most logically sound and balanced of all of the ways that we could do things. And quite honestly, it even goes beyond just the cognitive functions because as I had a commenter point out on one of my other videos, the cognitive functions do not exist in a vacuum all by themselves. They function together. Your computer will effectively join cognitive functions together to create other programs. And so therefore, some of us have the program of I need people to think I'm amazing. And some of us have the program of I need to be told that I'm good because I don't believe that I am. And some of us have the program of I need security. I need to know that everything is going to work out fine. And some of us have the program of I need to gather in more information. I need variety. I need more. And so the result of that is that, let's just go back to the ESFP. The ESFP's program will frequently be gather in more information. We don't have enough processed information in order to extrapolate out a conclusion. So just keep on gathering and gathering and gathering, but maybe never actually extrapolating and concluding. The IJ's program will frequently be, we already have enough information, let's conclude, when in actuality, it would be beneficial for them to gather in more information. The EJ's program will frequently be the best place to gather information is from going around and asking all the people, not always taking the time to do like analytical research, but just going out and finding out what everybody else thinks or how they all feel. The IP's program will frequently be ignore all the other people and get your information from narrowed down sources. From this person, I respect that source and that source and that source, so I'll gather in lots of information, but from very few sources. Whatever your program is, what you would do well to understand is that you have these cognitive function individual computer programs and then cognitive functions joining together as joint computer programs to form basically other computer programs. And you unwittingly, unknowingly, because of the way you're naturally wired, are favoring certain computer programs and letting them have first dibs at trying to make sense of the information. They're scrubbing out all sorts of useful data, and then they're handing a bare bones set of information to your other computer programs. And in the end, you're making decisions. You're saying words. You're living the life that you live based on sort of this incomplete output of information, this incomplete conclusion or many conclusions that your mind has drawn from what it could have been a complete set of information, but you scrubbed out useful data right off the get-go with that first program or those first couple of programs. The way that I see the cognitive functions is really that they are your brain's processing instruments, your brain's programs. They are your apps or whatever you want to refer to it as, and they are responsible for helping you make sense of the world. But unfortunately, we are imbalanced. These computer programs are not given equal opportunity to analyze the data and work together to produce good conclusions. So what can you do? First of all, realize that. How can you realize it? Look at everybody else. It's easy to see in all the other people how crazy imbalanced everybody is. Guess what? If they're all imbalanced, you are too. and then begin to look for your imbalances. And that's one of the beauties of knowing your personality type. If you know your personality type, it can help you to just mathematically figure out what your imbalance is. Oh, you're an INFP. Well, your imbalance is that your FI, your introverted feeling, is going to scrub all the data before your intuition and sensing, and definitely before your extroverted thinking ever get a chance to look at it. So know your imbalance, and then you can begin to work on strengthening the programs that you naturally want to turn off and not use. And maybe you can even learn to not allow your first computer program or couple of programs to have free reign of the data before they pass it on to the rest of your brain. I am certainly not claiming for one second that I have a complete stranglehold on this concept, but I'm trying to work through in my own mind what the cognitive functions really are, so that when we talk about them, we're not talking about some ambiguous concept. We can talk about introverted thinking and what it does, but what is introverted thinking as a cognitive function? I'm not just talking about what it does, but like what physically, literally, tangibly is it? And I think the answer, at least as I've come to conclude at this moment in my life, maybe I'll think differently a year from now, is that it really is a pre-wired program in your brain. And so are all of the other cognitive functions. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you found this interesting and informational. Do please give it a like if you did. Please subscribe if you have not already. Thank you for watching, and have yourself an awesome day. Bye now.